What's up, people? Mr. Eddie Barber back with another one here for you today. We're going to do a skin fade mid to high with a 2 on the top. Starting with the Andis ZR with a 5.0 detachable. That's going to mow through that hair really quickly. It's going to take all that all the way down as short, if not shorter, than your trimmer is capable of. And then when you come in with that electric shaver, it's going to be super easy to fade that line because that hair is already cut so short. So I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to press hard at the very bottom, but I'm going to release my tension once I get to the line. The whole purpose here is that we don't want to create extra work for ourselves. So I don't want to take it all the way into that line and cause myself to have to do this process again. I want to ease that tension up, or I might come down with it to fade the line. But whatever you got to do, flicking it, reducing tension, starting with it all the way down, pressing hard at the bottom, and then you might have to come down with it with the grain. And the idea here is, if you see, there's no line of demarcation in between the skin and my 5.0 line, and that's exactly what I want. Okay, so anybody who needs to, go ahead and pause it and check out this diagram that I made. Alright, we're starting with the lever in the open taper position. Now I'm going to show you what happens in between the guards. If you look off to your right, that's the fully open taper. Okay, now I'm going to close the lever a little bit, so it's still open 90%. And I'm going to stay just below where I went. And I'm going to work that line. I'm going to work that across that whole little side there. And I'm staying in between that half-inch guideline that I set for myself. I will begin to close the lever a little bit more. So now the lever is only open 75%. And you can already see that it's starting to wipe out that line. And then I will close the lever even more. It'll be only open still 50%. And eventually I'll close it down to it's only open 25%, and then it's entirely closed all the way down, and I'm maintaining that angle, or I'm keeping the clipper just the corners to touch. Okay, I don't want to touch down too hard on I don't want that blade to be perfectly flat, because it's so easy to make yourself another line. So we're just going to use those corners. We're going to keep that on an angle during this whole process on these in-between steps. As soon as you begin closing that lever, you have to keep that on an angle. It will reduce the potential for you to create more lines and create additional work for yourself. So as I'm closing this down, I'm keeping it on an angle, and I'm trying to find a way to work against the grain. The grain is going to change from the back of the head to the front of the head. You just have to follow that grain around. You have to chase that thing down. You have to see where, what is making the effect. And then just use your eyes to see how much more your lever needs to close. Sometimes you're trying to get a spot and it's not working. Because listen, even if you follow the theory to the T, even if you follow all the rules and all the steps, hair is crazy. It'll throw different challenges at you, and sometimes you'll have to break the rules in certain spots. But like what I'm saying is, if you look at that diagram, you'll always know what to do. So you'll be up doing this step, and you'll know that a number 1 is not going to take out that skin line. You know that a half is not going to take out that skin line. You know that you got to go shorter to get that line out. Okay, so there I was again, flicking in that first line, and now I'm closing it. The lever's closed 90% right now. Okay, I'm closing it a little bit more. Closed about 75% right now. Okay, lever might be going down to about 50% right now. You make a mistake, open it back up a little bit like I just did. Okay, now try to get your money's worth out of each blade though, keeping that thing flat. Keeping it flat on the head. Don't be bouncing off the head all over the place. You want to keep it flat up against the head, and as soon as you begin closing it, try to make an effort to go against the grain and keep it on a slight angle, or only put one side of the guard, one side of the blade down. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you is, if you do this entire step and your clipper is not set short enough where you are unable to get out that 5.0 line, okay, you just got to go back to your trimmer and flick that little 5.0 line out. But I want it to be gone before you go any further. So here I am coming back with that Super ZR. Instead of using my trimmers, I decided to use that. I'll just use the corners of that, and that'll flick that line right out, because that's what I put it in with. Okay, so my clippers, when I did this haircut, they weren't zero gapped far enough where I was able to do that. I actually rectified that problem. As I continued working with them, I reset them a couple more times, and I got them just right to take care of this process without any issues. So here we are again, doing that same thing. I got it open 100% while I put in that first initial line. And I seen something there. Like I said, if you see something, go back before you go forward. Be thorough, make sure everything is perfect, and go back before you go forward. Actually, I didn't forget something. I had a student, I was working with her, and I was trying to explain what I was doing. So now I'm just showing her that I did it with it open. I just want to show you guys, like, this is not flat, okay? You want to keep it on the skin. Not like this, not like that. You want to keep it flat like this on the skin, okay? And that's where you want to rock it. Like, the head is going to be your anchor. You don't have to have the most steady hands in the world to perform these things. You don't have to be the most perfect person that ever lived to pull off these fades. They're not that hard, okay? All the processes and all the steps and all the guards and all the companies and everybody has worked to make this as easy as possible for anyone who wants to learn how to do it. It simply takes the time and it takes the dedication to understand how to do this and then to learn it. And then, of course, there's people who fade different than me, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you might fade different than me. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just showing you an easy way to get it done because, look, there's no way you're going to make a mistake working with my system here because I'm showing you're working in between the 5-0 line and the open taper line right now. If you're above that, then you're making a mistake. Okay, that's where I want you working right now, in between the 5-0 line and the open taper line. Now, when you go on to the next step, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to work in between your next guideline. So this is going to keep you on point. It's going to keep you right where you need to keep your fade. And a lot of times you're going to think, oh, it's not getting it. I ran it over. Just because you ran it over once doesn't mean it's going to get it. Just because you ran it over twice doesn't mean it's going to get it. It might be the case that the hair is just laying down or it's in a bad position and the clipper's not cutting it. So you need to find that against the grain step and you need to take care of that. And anytime you go in to try to fix a spot, just like that spot that I fixed, I go in safely with the open taper all the way, all right? And then I begin to close it and I begin to work that spot out. It's as simple as that, really. Like, you always want to caution yourself. You don't want to, like, you see a dark spot, chase in after it with the shortest thing you got, and then boom, you made more work for yourself. Try to avoid doing that. It's going to make a lot more mistakes if you just charge right in there. So always, if you're not sure, go a step above. Even put a guard on it sometimes and try it, because you don't know what might actually get rid of it. So like I said, I'm just being thorough here. I'm going back before I go forward. So I was having a little trouble getting that 5-0 line out because my clippers weren't zero gapped enough. I went back with the ZR. Keeping it on an angle is super important with this because this thing cuts really short. It's very easy to cut another line into this haircut, and then you're going to begin the process all over again. All right, so now I put my half guard on. I have it in the open position, and I'm going to simply do what I just did. I'm going to make a 1/2 inch to 1 inch guideline all the way up, and I'm going to wipe out all that hair above it. And now I'm simply just working in between that guideline that I just set, and I know it's sort of faint at the top, which is good because the fade's already starting to come out, so that's cool. Now I'll begin closing it, just little by little, closing it, a little bit more and stay a little bit lower. Now closing it so that it's almost entirely closed, or it might be all the way closed right now, and I'm going directly against the grain. That's kind of the name of the game here. Close it, stay underneath the spot where you just were. So it's open at 90%, then it's open only 75%, then it's open only 50%, and then it's open only 25%, and then it's fully closed. And sometimes you're going to have to break those rules. You might have to go up a little bit higher in some spots. You might have to stay a little bit lower in others. And always go back before you go thorough. Go back before you go forwards. This is me being thorough. I'm using the open taper, and I'm wiping that out. Now, before I jump to the other side, so I don't have to reset up my camera, I'm going to start by making the top, the next guideline up. What's the next step up from a half open? The next step up is actually a 1 closed. But again, I'm doing the same process. I'm beginning with it in the open position, and then I'm going to begin closing it. 75% close. I'm going to close it all the way. And this is going to happen a lot faster than your skin spot. You know, when you're working at the number 1, beyond the half to the 1, you're going to find that those fades are going to come out a lot quicker at that level. It doesn't show as many mistakes as it does when you're working with your skin. So, again, I'm always cautioning you to go back before you go forward. So this is me going back to the half. I seen a little dark spot that I wanted to clean up a little bit. So I go back to the half and I take care of it. Because obviously if I ran it over with the one closed and nothing happened, what's the point of continuing to do it if you know that that's not the length that you need? So that's where the fade diagram comes into place. If you need to, screenshot that. I made it on Adobe Illustrator. Thought it would be easy to show people what was going on. So I jumped from one side to the other. I really didn't do the back, so I'm going to do the back real quick for you. Same thing, open taper line. And I'm going to run through this real quick. Then I'm going to begin closing it little by little. So it's currently 90% open still. Okay, tapping it a little bit, about 70% open. Closing it a little bit more, 50% closed, all the way closed, totally wiped out. So we're in business here. And now, see that little spot there? I'll put it all the way open again, see if that gets it, just because I didn't go against the grain. I see a little bit still, so I'm going to close it just a tiny bit, see if that gets it. It's just all about being cautious, You take those little steps down, see what it's going to take to wipe this out. And notice that I'm trying to find it against the grain. I'm going with the grain. I'm going across the grain. I'm just trying to lift that up. Now I got the lever closed a little bit more, and I'm working it on an angle, and it seems to have wiped that little dark spot out that I was concerned about. So again, we're switching guards here. We're going to go with the half. We're going to create our next guideline, just like we did on that left side. Half is open. Gets a little tricky here in the crown because crown never grows straight down. Never. It always sort of shoots out on an angle with those collets and those growth patterns. It moves around back there. So you're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to have to follow that growth pattern. Try to stay against it. Sometimes you can use with the grain. Sometimes you can go across the grain. Whatever you have to do to get it done. Now, if you've decided on the top of your client's hair that you're going to do a with the grain cut or whatever, you want to be careful, because if you decided to cut the whole top with the grain and you come up against the grain, you could cut a bald spot in some people's hair. Now, not in this case. This wouldn't happen in this particular case, but if you were, you'd want to be cautious of that. So I'm going to bring the fade diagram back in just so I could show you where we are. We're actually literally right at the spot that I made the example from. So I did it with the 0 fully open and the 0 fully closed on the guard. Of course, I'm calling it a 0, but it's a half guard in the wall system. And that lever is 90% open, 75% open, 50% open, 25% open. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So now I'm doing it with the 1. Exact same thing. With the 1, coming against the grain. The process is going to go, like I said, a little bit faster once you got those guards in there and you got that going in action. It's starting to look pretty good. We're starting to get past those areas. There might be a dark spot or two that we might have to clean up afterwards, but I'm just trying to tell you guys to be as thorough as you possibly can the first time. So I'm going back with the half, and I'm chasing after those dark spots. That's why it's like, go ahead, step back. Go ahead, step back. So, all right, now I'm taking the, actually it looks like I did a 1.5 on the top of his hair. So I'm taking the 1.5 and I'm going against the grain with it. By the way, I never do this with a regular clipper. I was actually doing this sort of as a test for the senior, just to see how many passes it would take me, how much longer it would take me compared to my detachable. Which I have to say, these things can do a pretty decent job of debulking. I haven't been disappointed in them. They actually got through the hair in a pretty decent amount of time. But I'll keep the detachable going for that. I'm going to continue using my detachables for stuff like this because it doesn't make sense when you have a debulking clipper that can cut in 2, maybe 3 passes. I mean, I still had to go over this top 40, 50 times to get every single little hair. And I'm very like anal about that. Like I need that all to be cut. It drives me nuts if someone cuts the top of my hair and leaves a bunch of little hairs. Like after I get a shampoo and boom, I see a bunch of little hairs just like this sticking up. So you can see me doing my best to try to get those. And it seems like no matter how many passes I take with this thing, I don't think I'm going to get them all. I really don't. Because even afterwards, when I was completely done, or what I thought I was completely done, I looked real close and I still found a few. I'm not sure if I did it in this video, but I do it with every single customer. I spray the top, I mist the top of their hair lightly with a water bottle, and then I go back over that again. Sometimes that causes those to pop back up and you can get them. Okay, in his case, I'm just going to do his edge. I actually will tell you one thing about doing edge ups. I probably should do a whole video on this, but if you look at a client, right, and you look at him straight in the mirror like this, and you notice that the left side's a lot higher than the right side, before you begin, what side should you start on? Leave it in the comments. I'll ask you that just to leave it in the comments. I got a one open there, and I just did a slight front fade because he's got a collet right in the edge, and I wanted to knock that down a little bit so it would look cleaner when I do that. So yeah, what side would you start on? If the left side was real high and the right side was real low, which one would you begin on first? Otherwise, let's just say that your client has a pretty decent hairline and there's no obvious problem on one side opposed to the other. I would tell you to go ahead and start in the middle. But which side would you start on? I'll give you my answer in the comments later. So it looks like I'm starting to wrap this video up, so I'm gonna peace out here. I know it's been kind of long. I want to thank you guys for sticking around, and those of you who've been watching and listening and following me. And if you haven't got a chance yet, link up with me on Primetime Cuts, man. I'll follow you back. It's a win-win. You'll get a follower out of it for sure. I'm trying to link up with all you guys. And don't be afraid to send me a message or whatever. And I try to comment on a lot of your photos and everything. I want to spread the barber love too, you know. It ain't no ain't no thing to it. So if you guys follow me, like I said, I'll follow you back, and we'll keep in touch, bounce ideas off of each other. It's actually been awesome, man. I've been meeting some really cool people. I'm really excited. Got some stuff in the works, and things are going pretty good. So other than that, that's all I got for today. I'll have to see you in another video real soon. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And if you need any of the tools that you've seen in this video, I'm going to put a link in the description so that you don't have to search the whole internet looking for them. Check them out. And until my next video, I'm out.
Yeah, are you watching lightning?